Just realised the futility of coming on in disguise when they introduce you in your real name. Didn't quite think that one through. Where's this mic going? So my name's John Mooney, and my area of specialism is alcohol public health research, otherwise known as a dedicated and enthusiastic proponent of the nanny state. And part of the disguise, of course, is I used to work with a team at University of Sheffield that did all the work around alcohol minimum unit pricing, which, as you can imagine, made trips back to Glasgow a little bit hazardous. University of Sheffield, is it? Public health, is it? You wouldn't be working in that minimum unit pricing, would you? Me? No, I'm just working in genital herpes prevention. Oh, that's all right then. So I'm now based at the University of Sunderland. Hooray! Which, as you can imagine, very much like Glasgow, it's an ideal place to study the public health impact of alcohol. Sunderland, it may not surprise you to learn, has got one of the highest rates of alcohol-related hospital admissions in North East England. Now, that's equivalent to probably being the most bigoted redneck at a Donald Trump convention. There's some pretty serious competition in this part of the world. But shouldn't really make light of alcohol public health issues, because although some policy gurus actually they do try their best. Take, for instance, the overarching guidance document produced for alcohol harm reduction in England in 2004, and I kid you not, the Alcohol Harm Reduction Strategy for England, or ARSE. If ever there was a line designed for the mouth of Father Jack, it's going to be that. Drink, girls, ARSE! You can just see the Whitehall civil servants high-fiving each other when they realise they got that past the minister. Yeah, all right! Of course, perhaps one of the most inspired bits of that legislation was the initiative to try and control alcohol-fueled disorder by removing all controls on hours of alcohol sales, all licensing controls. So what do you think the effect of, what do you think happened when the alcohol policy researchers evaluated the effectiveness of removing all controls on alcohol drinking as a means of controlling alcohol-fueled disorder? Anyone care to guess? Make a stab in the dark. Well, stabs in the dark turns out to be quite an accurate analogy, because drink-fueled violence and assaults went up by the tune of about 30% in those pilot areas. So alcohol policy research does have its challenges. One of the most significant of those is actually getting accurate information on how much people drink. Because as we all know, all women lie about their weight, all men lie about their height. Careful. But everyone, just about everyone, lies about how much they drink. It's actually not that surprising. You take some of these policy and some of these survey instruments to ask people what they drink. It's not unusual, for example, for a health professional to be asking, you don't drink much, do you? Who, me? Oh, not at all. Not as much as you, anyhow. Another aspect of the difficulty is actually it's quite challenging to establish what's a safe level of alcohol consumption. And that's all tied up with a phenomenon known as the J-shaped curve. The J-shaped curve is just a name for a graph which has all-cause mortality up the one axis and alcohol consumption along the other. And it goes up a wee bit at the start, just signifying that people who are abstinent and teetotal actually do a little bit worse in terms of mortality than people like to moderate drinkers, signifying a little bit of what you fancy does you good. So it's still a bit controversial, but in Scotland they actually have the equivalent. It's called the JK curve. JK in Scotland is a term of endearment for someone exhibiting all the downward social mobility signs of alcohol dependency. And the JK curve is the name given to that minimum threshold intake of alcohol that will just help a JK walk in a straight line and not in a series of massive curves. So what might you think as an alcohol policy researcher doing in this part of the world, having been recruited from Glasgow, for instance? Why would you go to Glasgow for alcohol policy expertise? After all, this is the Buckfast capital of Europe. And it's no coincidence, in fact, that the main shopping street in Glasgow is called Buchanan Street, and the derivation of that is Buck and On, Because, as everyone knows, the side effect of actually drinking the amber nectar that comes from the serene surroundings of Buckfast Abbey is actually, it guarantees you complete anonymity, because you end up speaking exactly like a Glasgow Net. Oi, is that you doing the buggy? A case of all the ginger William? So one of the other challenges, some of the other controversies around so-called nanny state policies, such as alcohol minimum unit pricing, is that they actually penalise responsible drinkers. Responsible drinkers such as Marjorie and Alistair, shopping for an upmarket wine restaurant in Morningside in Edinburgh. Oh, Alistair, look, a bottle of Dom Perignon for just £12.99. I'll get 2 of them, snap them up. And look, Chateau de Neuf at just £7.99. For goodness sake, 3 of those. And, oh, Marjorie, 2009 Beaujolais at there's only 6, but that was such a great year. Oh, buy all 6. So they're going outside with other bottles. Excuse me, you get 50 pence for a cup of tea. Oh, ignore him, Alistair. He's one of those winos. Some of the other names of notable names Glasgow Street are Achinghead Road, which, as you can imagine, is quite self-evident. But as for the name of Sucky Hall Street, the explanation behind that, I'll perhaps leave that for another time. There's a public health message in there as well, but I'll leave it to. But at least those names, they've got, they can be credited with a bit of imagination. If you take, for instance, the street that's at the centre of all the gentrification efforts of Newcastle to bring in upmarket establishments, what is the name? Grey Street. It's more like geriatrification than gentrification, for goodness sake. But one reassuring aspect of that is when you step out of here tonight, you will have a much less chance of being mobbed by a Gateshead hen party than a few years ago, because you have now entered what's known as the cumulative impact zone. And cumulative impact zone is a special place where the police and the council officers have actually got special powers to restrict new applications for alcohol licences. And they basically tend to decide against the less socially desirable premises. So think more along the lines of more wine and nibbles for Alistair and Marjorie, and less Buckfast on tap at the Dog and Bone. All right there, Malky, ho ho ho. So, but it's actually it's an optimistic time for alcohol research, because the situation is now such that it's been recognised that the health effects of alcohol are actually not just around the violence-fueled crime and assaults, but it's really important to take account of the long-term health effects of alcohol. So that's led to the introduction of a special policy known as Health Associated Licensing Objective, or HALO. It's another great acronym. So just hold that thought there for a minute while I just give this dedicated tribute song from a Glasgow researcher to Newcastle's enlightened policies. Once upon the time there was disorder, there was crime, because everyone was pickled on the bevy. But all that came to grief when the police and the council chief introduced their top-up charging late-night levy. Now stags and hens all go to Durham, 'cause there's nothing left here for 'em, and all-night boozing parties have been banned. They've installed the impact zone on their Google map and phone, and Newcastle's the safest drinking city in the land. I have to resort again to the HALO policy, because that actually lets me sign off with a far greater singer than me. I've been John Mooney, and this is Beyoncé. Thank you.